Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's Norada realestate.com.
Welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, and I have with me Sarah Vogt, and Sarah has a pretty cool story. Her and I met in probably about 2010, I believe, 9 or 10. Both of us joined a real estate brokerage at the same time and met through then. We met through there, and we were both kind of doing a bit of the same thing. And Sarah and her husband have done, I think, a pretty phenomenal job at building a lot of wealth for themselves and building freedom to allow them to do kind of what they wanted to do. So welcome, Sarah.
Yes, thanks for having me, Todd. We're excited for this new adventure and really feel, lucky to be on. Thank you for having me, and maybe Brandon will get to come on another time with his part.
Thanks for taking the time. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of give a little bit about your background, your story, maybe lead us through that, and where your philosophy was or your goals were, and where you're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe you're right that I kind of forgot even about being together at Keller Williams, and I believe it was 2009. For some reason, and I was trying to think of the source, but when this happened, Brandon and I have always known or thought that real estate was one of the best vehicles to achieve wealth, or at least more financial freedom and independence in our time and with our money. So it's something that we were always interested in. When we were first married, I think a lot of seeds were planted through relatives, and I don't know where it all started, but that's something that we kind of knew we wanted to shoot for. So Brandon was working, just randomly talked to someone at work, and they knew someone who was flipping houses in 2009, and it was pretty early in 2009, and that was like the little window that we needed to meet up with them and start going with this. So that was a huge blessing. And then in 2009, we did a couple flips with a group, and then I got my license on my own because it was so crazy at that time. And Brandon was supportive of that. I should start looking into this potentially full time. So I got my real estate license.
Let me click. What does crazy mean? You said so crazy.
So crazy. So I remember going out with this group that was doing flips, and that was when we were looking at houses for like $30,000 to $50,000. A lot of them. Sometimes you could always find like $60,000 to $80,000, I think, but we were really looking for that lower number. And I remember in the group, it was kind of hard to get with your agent and get out fast enough to get the houses before someone else did. So it made sense that if I had my license, I could go look that day at houses that were new on the market, and I could put an offer in as soon as I could so that we could be reacting fast to what was coming on the market and get some of these better deals than ones that have maybe been sitting there a few days or a few weeks even.
Yeah, and that's probably why we connected so quickly, is because I did the exact same thing. I got my license for the exact same reason. So
I know, and we even missed it a little bit, I think. Like, 07 or 08 would have maybe been even better. But anyways, we got in a little bit and got our feet wet, and it was quite a ride.
Cool.
And,
So go ahead.
I was actually going to say, when you were talking about the office, one of the ways that we had seen each other, but one of the ways that we really got to know each other better was when you asked us to go to an auction for you, because you were going to be out of town and I had never done one before. And we ended up getting a couple of properties that way throughout the next few years. And that was really fun. So I think that was like one thing that really kicked off, like, hey, I think you said, hey, can anybody go to this auction? Because I'm going to be out of town. And I was like, do you really do those? So that was kind of
Did we get any houses? I can't remember.
I think you got one, and I don't remember if I did or not, but we got one at a different one, a couple of different ones, I think. And I wish they were still doing those more.
Well, I remember going to those auctions. I don't know how many you guys went to, but I remember going to some of them, and a few smaller ones where there was like maybe 50 people there. And the first few houses, everybody was bidding on them, and then eventually people went away. And I remember going to one in particular. I walked away with, it had to have been close to 10 houses. It was between like 8 and 10 houses. And we ended up buying all of them because they're such good deals, but nobody was bidding on them anymore because they had bought what they, could buy. And so some of those auctions were just so great.
They were, and I know we'd sit there, and a couple times our numbers were always so conservative. So we would visit the houses beforehand. I know some people didn't even do that. They were like, it looks good, let's do it. But we would visit them, and I would kind of write up our approximate numbers, and I'd put a pretty good cushion on them because the last thing I wanted was like a super headache and a money pit. So, but I remember sitting on the edge of my seat a couple times and being like, oh, should I go higher? I know that I put a cushion on. Should I go higher? And I think we walked away from a couple because I don't know who said it, but that was one good rule for us, is that I'd rather lose out on 5 or 10 good ones than get like one terrible one. So I'm sure we missed out on, more. There could have been a lot more opportunity that we jumped on, but because of that, I think we also avoided some headache, and we were pretty new then. So being conservative was super important at that point, because I think like buying something that ended up being a money pit or just a ton of problems would have maybe turned us off to it, or burnt us out, or, I just don't think we would have had the longevity. So we were super, super conservative about setting ourselves up for success monetarily, at least, which is kind of the biggest deal. I don't actually want a lot of experience necessarily in all of those terrible stories, as much as I want to just set ourselves up for success right out the gate.
I mean, that's extremely valuable, though. And I think that's important because a lot of people did go to these auctions, especially as the market got hotter and hotter and hotter. And that's where the auctions get people into trouble, is they get emotionally attached. They get that competitive kind of, I was only supposed to bid 50 grand, but I can go up to 52, and I'll go up to 55. I'll go up to 58. And all of a sudden you pay 64 grand and you're only supposed to pay 50. And now you're, $30,000 profit.
Like, right. And then there's the fees on top, and you kind of are then it's so easy to get caught up in the rush of it though. But you don't want to be, mad about it at the end. So
no, I think you guys were extremely smart about that, because like you said, I mean, you can get so caught up, and like you said, you didn't necessarily want the problems, want the experience. You wanted to make sound financial decisions. So that was smart.
Yeah.
I do remember buying one property in particular at an auction, never viewed it. And it did work out really well, but it probably wasn't the best choice. I bought it for $18,000, so I knew I couldn't go wrong. And that was after all the fees, $18,000. And
Oh,
I
wow.
still own it today. It's a rental property, and I think I owe like 20 grand on it because I refinanced it, pulled all my money out. And
Oh, that's not so bad.
no, it's not
But
bad at all. It worked out great. I rent it for $1,400 a month, and
that's
works out
awesome.
well. But that was lucky.
Oh,
You were smart by by looking at all of them, and I usually did. That was,
and it's a little bit tricky, I think. One, I was learning a lot as we went. So every
yeah,
step of the way was like, oh, wow, this is new. And so we would take another step and we would learn a bunch more stuff. And to me, that was great. And I really, there's so many ways that you can learn about real estate. And I'm definitely a person who's a learner by doing. So some people have no problem buying a property and passing it off and kind of managing from far off. But I was a little nervous about these, and I didn't feel comfortable just handing them off right away.
yeah,
So I became really handy. And I think it's important to, whatever business you're in, know that business well. And so I didn't want to have call a plumber out to fix something and have them say, oh, well, here it is, XYZ, and it's this much money, and, get charged crazy amounts when if I did a little bit of research first, sometimes I found out, oh, wow, this is like a $2 piece and a 10-minute job, and they want to charge $250 for it or something. So, we were lucky we had the time, or I had the time to kind of take that step by step as we went, whether it was looking into auctions or looking into new financing or into then the managing portion of it. But I just knew that these were so crucial to our success or failure that for me, it was important to hold them pretty close and to know what was going on. Not through third parties and not through other people, if that makes sense. Where did we start with that? So learning, taking a step and just learning along the way and trying to make sure that you're not fighting off more than you can chew and setting yourself up for success is such a big deal in this industry, I think.
but you said that, and I agree. That's a really important. But you also didn't learn everything before you started. Is that right? I mean,
No,
you got started right away and then learned as you went. It sounds.
yes. And and I started off on that because I would never buy a $18,000 house because I do not know about every part, and I can fix some things or I can see some things, and I'm a pretty good estimator at what things will cost to do. But as far as doing a ginormous project like that, I was not interested in that. So we sifted through houses pretty thoroughly, and mostly what I found were ones that just needed facelifts, and that was really helpful for us, not to take the house that was in terrible shape that we would have to strip down to the bones and redo everything on. Although some of the flips were a little bit more extensive, but ones that we did flips first, and then after that, we saw value in holding some as rentals. So our business model kind of shifted. So in saying that, there were ones you could find that really needed maybe a bathroom like remodel, but mostly really cleaning, painting, and just sprucing up and loving a bit. And that's where we found our sweet spot. So I think it's really important to be intentional about, what suits your lifestyle and your needs, and then how is the best route that you can make that happen. Because there's so many ways you can get involved in real estate, but you shouldn't do them all, at least not at once.
No, I think it's great advice. So you started flipping. How many flips did you guys do before you kind of shifted your mindset?
We, yeah, I think we did. I don't think we quite did 10. So in '09, I think we got to do 4. And then in 2010, we got to do a couple more. And maybe 2011 or 2012, it kind of cooled off for a little bit, I felt like, or the area that was really hot for us turned a bit. And so getting familiar with other areas and finding deals in those areas it was a little bit shifty for a while of how the market went and us getting back into our groove.
Sure. And then you guys bought rentals. Take me through that. You kind of explain your buying. What was about the price range that you were buying? How much about did you put into it, and what were you renting those for? And what kind were they? Single families or multifamily?
No, that's great. So we were starting to see, I think that was right when the first time home buyer credit was being discontinued or stopping. We noticed that our flips were not selling as fast. And when we were kind of working on our vision and our goal planning, what we ultimately wanted, or I ultimately wanted, was to have flexibility and a job that I could stay at home with, as we'd probably be starting a family in the next few years. So in our minds, it seemed obvious that we would just start buying and holding. And that was a really hard year because things had slowed down for flips a little bit. So it was harder to get properties at the price points we wanted. And I remember putting out, I think I was averaging like 1 offer accepted for every 30 offers that I made on houses. And I think we got most of our properties or a lot of them, you could still get around like 50 to 60,000. Brandon would have had me buying like every property I saw if we could have afforded it and if he had his way. And maybe that would have been a great route, but it was still really important to me to not be overwhelmed and to be able to manage what we had.
Yeah.
And to set ourselves up for success instead of like, yeah, we got all of these properties and then we just ran everything into the ground. So in hindsight, it would have been wonderful to get more, but I think that just being able to focus on what we had and do it pretty well worked out better. Well, who knows, but it worked out okay in the long run.
Yeah, it ended up working how you needed it to work. Because you were at the same time you were buying these rentals, you guys were starting a family as well.
Yeah. So we actually, our first place that we bought together before we were even in real estate was a foreclosure, which maybe that's one of the other things. There were just so many things that pointed us to real estate. And I have my degree as an interior design at the University of Minnesota. So that's actually a Bachelor of Science degree, not a Bachelor of Arts there. So I learned a lot about electrical systems and plumbing systems and floor plans and things like that with my degree. I never dreamed I would be using it for this. But it was so helpful in seeing houses that had good floor plans and having a vision for how good they could clean up. And then also there was not a lot happening in like the interior design world that I could get involved with and really be excited about. So this was an awesome way for me to utilize my education and see opportunity in these houses. And another part that was kind of really interesting, or that, I don't know, definitely defined how we do real estate is, you know, how disgusting a lot of these could be. I tried to steer a little bit clear of those, but in the beginning, we were really scrambling and scraping to get these properties. So like literally a lot of it was sweat equity. So I knew I couldn't like rewire the whole place, but I could definitely clean it down and repaint and just see like a world of difference happen in these places. So that was really exciting and satisfying. But definitely I've done a lot of painting and a lot of cleaning. So I guess, there are things that you do at the beginning to save money and to make your numbers work better, if that's the route, you're going. Had I had my job, that's something that we could have probably afforded to have someone do. But in this case, that was me. So I got to know these properties pretty well.
Fun. And now, so then you guys acquired a bunch of rentals, but then you decided to sell them as the market got hotter.
So it was, I feel like all of that scrubbing and painting, like I worked pretty hard to get these rentals to a place. Well, originally when we were switching over to this, our goal was to replace a salaried income that I would have. So for us, when we were doing our numbers per house, we were shooting for certain numbers. So that's why acquiring them around like 50 to 60,000 and putting in, paint goes a long way. Like some of these cheaper fixes to make them shine kept our numbers really low at first. And I know it worked out for you to do a lot of work at the beginning and make them really shine. And for us, it kind of worked, at least with the properties that we got, to just really clean them up and make them look like just good houses, just happy houses, I guess, where someone would want to live. So that was a big deal. Where was I going with that? Oh, so that was the original, yes, was how many properties do we need to replace my income? And then also, thinking about that cash flow and making sure that our numbers were right from the beginning. So early on, we had heard that you make your money buying a property. And I just remember standing there a little bit like, what? That don't you make your money when you sell your property is when you make your money. And so it took a little while for that to click with me, that if you buy wrong, you're just set up wrong from the beginning. And you just don't have room for those things that come up with houses. So it was really important for us to buy right, and then also to estimate our repairs right, so that when we put them in our spreadsheet for making an offer, that we would know, we would already pretty much know what we were going to be getting out of it, as long as there was nothing crazy that came up. So with that, I think what led to that is you saying you've got a bunch of rentals. And for us, the number that was a nice amount, or that I was shooting for, especially at the beginning, was just like 10 plus properties. Like if I can get to 10, then it's more worth it for me to stay home and be doing this than to be working a full-time job. So that was the initial like big goal that we were going for. And I remember being at like 3 and just being like, oh my goodness, I have done so many offers. Am I ever going to get to 10? And we did. So, sometimes it seems so slow. And then I remember looking back at the end of the year and being like, oh my goodness, when did I have time to worry about that? Because there were not that many lulls. Like it was a big year.
Yeah.
So real estate can be so interesting like that too, where you don't think things are happening, and then when you look back, you're like, things were happening.
Yeah, things were moving during that time, weren't they?
Right, and it can get so discouraging when you're putting out offer after offer and going to all of these houses that are they just need so much love. So anyways, good challenge.
Yeah, and we got to a point where we didn't even look at most of the houses. We knew the neighborhood, we knew the comps. We figured that the house needed 40 grand worth of rehab. That was just the magic number. We made an offer based on that. And I would honestly make 100 offers a week, and just to get a couple properties. And
Absolutely. And I was
it
so
was
not as
crazy.
confident as you, but that's so good. And you have such a great background, and just knowing how things can get done. Like, I feel like you're fearless about whatever happens in a house, we've got it covered. It's not a problem. Where I would be like, what is that? Like, I'm just looking for.
You've always got your inspection. Yeah.
Yes, you always. That is so true. You do always have your inspection,
Yeah.
and once you're getting, the time is of the essence in so many ways, and you run out of time. So, that was actually pretty wise. You would have had time to go. I mean, if an offer gets accepted, it's exciting, right? So then you could move forward and be like, oh, never mind. Or
yeah, and
we're good.
that's exactly what let's say I put 100 and I got 6 offers accepted. Well, then I got 6 properties to look at in 1 week and decide if I want either all 6 of them or just want 1 of them or 5 of them or whatever it is. But then I didn't have to look at 100 houses. That's where the strategy came. It was just too hard to go look at 100 houses. So
that was genius. Todd, that was genius.
So back to you. So you guys, how many did you get up to 10, or you got up a little higher than that, didn't you?
Yes, we got up to 11.
11. Okay.
And then we have one that we don't really count. That was our original, even though it was a foreclosure. We were still renting it. We were renting our original, and then so we got 10.
And that's the
another
condo?
Like kind of interesting, yes, the condo. Another interesting piece that Brandon is, it's good to like know your strengths. So I'm very much a doer, and Brandon is very much a thinker and formulator of like our financial things and making sure that I'm staying on track to the details. But something that really helped us get through those first couple of years as well is when we were putting offers out on houses for our own residents. Even we were looking at foreclosures because that's what we knew, and we knew we could make it work if we got the right one.
Yep.
So we ended up getting a property for a foreclosure, and we were always considering this when we looked at properties, if we could make it into 2 units or have a rentable area. So something that was amazing is the foreclosure that we got for our first single family home for us to live in had the potential to have a basement unit. It already had like a bathroom and a little bar down there, I think. So we had to put some walls in for bedrooms. And I think we had to get some things wired for like a range and the refrigerator potentially to make the bar like a kitchen. But renting out the basement almost covered our whole mortgage. And it really set us up for success that, if we had someone in our basement renting, we could save the rest of that money or put it towards another property. So that was a super big deal for us. And we were young, and we generally had young renters. So it was kind of fun too at that point.
Yeah, I think that's
financially, it just really, was a big deal for us that we were living in this space virtually free.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, anybody I don't care if you're going to be into real estate or not, anybody who's just getting started, that is such a great way just to financially get yourself set, is buy a duplex or, buy a single family with that mother-in-law type suite, and rent it out and get your mortgage paid for.
We even had some friends who did just renting out. They had friends at the time out of college and friends who didn't have places yet, and they all didn't mind living together and rented out a few rooms. And luckily, it ended up being a good situation for everyone too. It can be tricky renting to friends or family, so sure. I don't know that I would quite give that advice, but in this case, really worked out well too. So anyway, that you can just make sure that your monthly your own monthly payments and obligations are at a minimum if you're really committed to this. Sometimes you have to live lean for a while to really build up, not necessarily an empire, but whatever that is for you that gives you the financial freedom and gets you to your goals. And your first set of goals might come faster or take a little longer than you think, but I think it's so important to set that intention and to really to challenge, I think, to push the envelope a little bit, but to also be realistic and just set this is really what I want to achieve. We still do, every New Year's is one of my favorite holidays. We set up what do we want to happen this year? And it's a lot of times it's financially and business oriented, but we try to put some fun things in there too. Because I feel like if you don't set up what you want or think about what you want, how are you going to get it?
Yeah.
And so many times so we'll look back at the year before too, what did we have? Did we get there? And sometimes we don't look at them for the whole year. I try to piece back at them at July or something and be how are we doing? But just setting that intention, and it would be crazy to be I haven't even looked at these all year, and we hit every one of these, because I think you just kind of start having your vision and going for it. You know what you're going for.
Well, and both of you guys are talking about it and setting it together, which I think is really cool that you're doing that together and deciding, where you're going to be, what are your financial goals, what are some of your fun, recreational goals, that kind of thing. So that's really cool to do. I love that idea. We might steal that idea.
Yeah, it's really been great. How to live your best or a better and more balanced life. And with by no means perfect, but it has really been interesting. And that kind of takes us back to, you asked about selling the rentals then. And we kind of talked about it at New Year's, and these are my babies. This was I am going to get to 10, and then I'm going to get to coast a little bit, because I won't be finding them and fixing them and taking care of the other ones. I will just be doing the management. And so Brandon had said to me, you seem a little stressed. Maybe we should sell these rentals a year after we got to 11. And I was are you kidding? I just put my blood, sweat, and tears into these, and now you want me to turn around and get them ready to be on the market to sell? And he was I'm just saying we should consider that. So we kind of talked about it in depth at that New Year's, business options and life vision session that we have just together. And somehow we must have decided that we should, but it freaked me out so much, because I was then what am I going to do? And then what's my thing? And then how do I have income? And, what does that mean? So I literally had wrote it down, get the rentals ready and sell them in, I don't even know what year that was. And then I felt just uneasy about it all year. And I finally got peace about it in November. And then in just the end of December, we pulled out our goals, and I was looking at them, and I was I had this wrote down at the very beginning of the year. Why did it, that is what I had wrote. So why was I so unsettled about it all year? But it took me a long time to get to that was probably the right choice for us at this time. Anyway, it's just funny that it just surprised me that I had wrote it down, and then it finally came full circle that we did it.
But that takes you back to what you said earlier about, when you set goals, sometimes they come sooner and sometimes they come later. And this one just happened to come later because you knew that was the right step, but you weren't quite ready for that step yet.
Yeah, I was not ready to let go of them. And I knew that life would change again. So I just feel like things keep cycling, and it's a new set of everything. And at that point, we knew we were having our third child. And for me to be, it was probably either that we would have to move them over to a management company or sell them, because it was something that would be a lot trickier for me to be really involved in.
Yep.
And it just took me a while to see that was the best option, because I did really enjoy managing them and being involved with them and taking care of the houses. And there's a sense of accomplishment, I think, doing a big or small task on a house that will stay done. And I don't know, at least for me, that was definitely one of the things that I enjoy doing. So I think also that year, no, it might have been the next year then, I had heard about a book called Essentialism, and I was like, I think that I need to read that. And it is an amazing book, but it really talks about doing the thing that you are best at and doing only what is essential, not filling your life with all sorts of things that are non-essential. So it really hit at a good time of like, it is not essential for me to be holding all of these rentals still and being in charge of these. What is essential is taking care of, my household. And if we can sell these and have another option that's just as good for us, or maybe even better, then I think that's something to explore. But it just was so hard to get them all. And then the thought of once they're gone, you can't just get them back again. That it's, things, and it's good to think, I think it's good to think about those things and hold that thought or that question of, if not this, then what? And just make sure that, you're still making decisions that are true to your goals and your life plan.
Yeah, that's great. So now you sold these properties, and you guys have goals, obviously, moving forward, because you talked about that and how you set them at New Year's.
Yeah.
So I'm sure at New Year's in 2017, you set some new goals. And I know you guys, so I know you always talk about what you're doing, and you've got some exciting things you're thinking about doing, or maybe you've committed 100% to doing. I don't know. Can you kind of talk about that and kind of what the thought process is, kind of, where are you going and how are you getting there into? I think a lot of people, at least for me, and what I kind of want to accomplish with this podcast is, there's a lot of people out there that really don't know, how do we financially take care of ourselves? And I think you guys have done a fabulous job at it. So yeah, I guess take it how you want from there.
Well, that is a pretty loaded question.
Yeah,
I will do my best. I guess there are several parts to that. I really appreciate, I think it's important to know yourself and your strengths. And I think it's also, and your weaknesses then, of course, too. And it's also important to know your partner, like what your partner brings to the table and what are their strengths. And so in so many ways on this journey, I've leaned on Brandon for, doing the numbers or getting us a spreadsheet that in the beginning it was, that includes all of the costs for properties. So things that people forget to account for, when they're thinking about what all the costs will be to acquire, what all the costs will be to renovate, what the costs will be in the selling or in the holding instance for rentals. So all along the way, Brandon's strength has been numbers, and he's just so valuable about keeping our finances in order, and in a way that doesn't feel really restrictive to me, but actually feels pretty freeing. I don't actually have a budget for myself, which I think is good, or for like that. This is going to be like a nice, Brandon doesn't give me a budget as long as I'm staying within his acceptable budget. So anyway, anyways, those, you have to work out those things together.
Sure.
So I must be staying within the acceptable budget because I have not felt really like he's just laying the hammer down on me all the time and I can't ever do anything or get anything. So we try to live balanced within that. But at the same time, he's also really awesome about money. Money's important, but it does not buy happiness. So, I think it's always good to know that we are working for money and we want to have money and financial independence, but so many things, like so many of the best things in life are not about money. So making sure that, when we're having fun, a lot of times it's meeting up with friends or going to a park or enjoying, being at the beach or something like that, instead of, I don't know,
buying a
you
new
can
boat
spend
and
money
buying
all over the place.
Yeah.
Yes, and even trying to teach the kids that like we could buy ice cream at the ice cream truck right now that comes through our yard, or we could buy 4 times as much at the grocery store and then even have some to share, or things, just trying to be good stewards of money and knowing when it's okay to or good to spend money and when also it's like we should do that a smarter way. So at any rate, he's been really great about that. And then even when he was saying, Sarah, maybe you should sell the rentals, it seems like they're stressing you out, which, there can be, we could do a whole nother one on stories, right? So things that happen when you're managing and things that you do wrong and that you do right and people. So anyways, when he was saying this, he was talking about once we sell and reinvesting, and trying to do things more passively. So because I cannot be so involved when we have young children around, and that's probably not the best spot for me at this point in our life. So he really did some good number crunching, and really realistic things. And I think our goal is to be a bit more passive now than, actively being involved with our funds. And then through that, we also hope to have some family adventure and enjoy people and places instead of just spending money and getting, bigger houses and better cars and, all of those, I don't know, like an expensive purse or something that my kids would spill ice cream on. Things, trying to keep the focus real.
Yeah, the kids boogers and drool gets on and
I know, everything. So those things, and we'll laugh about, we do not drive really nice cars. In fact, they're kind of not that nice. They're practical, I'll say that. But something about having things that we keep talking about too is the more things you have, the more things you have to take care of, and the more that stresses you out if someone else isn't taking care of them, or if someone's and with kids, things just, you don't want to be worrying about the inside of your car or how your couch is, or I don't know. It just would be so stressful. So we're trying to de-stress and take things down to just being able to enjoy, and not worry about things.
So would you call yourself kind of, are you guys minimalizing then? Are you the minimalists?
We are. Well, this may be a whole nother, should we leave like a little cliffhanger here?
Yeah.
This could be a whole nother topic. We are minimizing, yes. Brandon has always wanted to travel and see more of the world. And so our goal now, well, and we have joked about this, so I always do staging in my houses because as an interior design major, I love staging houses, and I love making houses look more beautiful, and I want people to walk in and go, oh, I love this house. I could just sit down at the couch here and like never leave. I feel so at home. So at one point, when we sold our rentals, we staged all of them. So at one point I had enough things for like 3 houses, like including our own house. So, but like at any given time, I was staging 2 houses at a time. So when all of these things came back, you suddenly go like, oh, I have a lot of stuff, and we sold all of these houses, and I don't think that I'm going to be a stager. So what do we do here? So that started a massive downsizing. And then from there, yeah, it just gets ridiculous. America is so wonderful, and there are so many beautiful things that you can have. But in the end, we're finding that they're definitely not what life is all about. So, yes. So we are going to, and one last thing, I don't know. I know you guys have done this too, but it happens naturally when you are moving into foreclosures and then selling them and your family's growing. We kept moving into foreclosures and fixing them and then selling them, and we could get something bigger now because we sold our property for more. So you start just upping your house size a little bit every move, and then you fill it up. And so we are going to do a drastic life change, I believe. It's in progress, of downsizing and getting rid of most things that we have, and hopefully doing some traveling. Traveling to different parts of the world and just enjoying our family and experiencing different cultures and learning about real estate in different places.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. That sounds so just so much fun. And what you guys have done has set you up for it. I mean, you've been, like you said, you've been good stewards of your money. You haven't gone out and blowing your money on buying a boat and a 4-wheeler and a lake cabin and all that kind of stuff. Which is, if that's what you absolutely love and need to do, I mean, if you can afford it, okay. It's not for me, and it's really not for you guys. But so you guys have been really good stewards of your money, and now you're able to look at this and explore it and actually, do it if you choose to do it, which is really cool. And you guys are, young, you're in your mid-30s, and you've got tons of life ahead of you, but now is a fantastic time to go do it. You get to bring your kids along, and I think it's fantastic. And you've set yourself up for it.
Yeah, I think, it'd be really interesting. Brandon is super passionate about how to do that and how, what decisions we made that really took it to the next level for us maybe. And they're actually not hard things to do. And in a lot of ways, like I said, they can be freeing, especially when you don't have to worry about, do we have enough money for this? And it can be stressful. You get something, and then there's that, buyer's remorse is real. But also, about the boat and the cabin, like you said, if that is something that is, you talk about your life plan with your partner or on your own, what things you really want, that is something, that gives you happiness and is your peaceful place, absolutely you should do it. But I think the important thing is to set your goals and intentions, and how do you want your life to look, and how are you going to get there? And so often it seems like this huge goal out here, or this huge, how are we going to get our finances to this, or how are we going to cut back enough to save for that? And I feel like in all parts of life, once you know your goal, it's just every day living it out. So being true to the goal that you most identify with and that you're working for. And just step by step every day, all of a sudden you're there and things line up when you are going for your goal, and you can clearly see what decisions are good and what decisions are not good to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. And being able to change and adapt your goals too. Cause, you know, 10,
Yes,
10 years ago,
for
you
sure.
didn't, yeah, 10 years ago, you and Brendan didn't sit down in New Year's and say, hey, you know what, we're going to travel the world. Uh, well, maybe you did, but I don't think you did. That wasn't really the goal. But
No.
you know, it's changed and adapted as you've gone and and so if you decide the boat and the lake place is the thing, but that ends up adding more stress to your life, it's always okay to sell everything and do that next step that you think is going to be your next goal.
Yes, absolutely. And once you get to your goal, you will for sure strategize again, or you come to a crossing where you go, I was on track for this, but now we maybe need to reanalyze this, and that's totally acceptable. But I think if you just don't have a clear vision of where you're going, you won't get anywhere, and especially not where you want to go. So there's just so much power in, I think, thinking about it and then writing it down so that you can revisit it. And if you need to cross it out and change it, that is fine. But it's good to write it down and go, oh, I thought I was going to do this. Well, a couple things changed, and that's fine too. But write it down, and it's so fun to look back at. It is so fun.
And be intentional about it.
Yeah.
So a couple things to end. So what's your favorite book that you like to read? That's
my favorite book. Well, definitely Essentialism. I need to read it again. I just felt like I kept sighing the whole time. Definitely Essentialism.
Do you know who is the author of that?
It's on my Kindle, so I never actually look at the front cover.
That's okay. People can find it. So it's Essentialism.
Google it, but I think that's really important for just seeing why you want to do what you're best at and clear a lot of the other stuff out of your life.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Sarah, I appreciate you taking time with us. I think this has been fantastic, talking mostly about goals and, setting yourself up, being intentional, and then of course taking us through your guys' journey and how you created some financial success and how you've been achieving your goals as you've gone through different steps of your life. So I appreciate all the time and the insight. I think it's been extremely valuable.
Yes, thank you so much, Todd. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, and we'll get Brandon around to share some more of his piece, because it's all about partnerships in this. It's better to do it together and with so many people than just on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we talked about before the show, if you guys end up doing this world traveling, we're going to have to do another episode with both of you from, Thailand or from Italy or from wherever you are in the world, and talk about your journey as well.
Oh, I hope so too. It will be quite an adventure. So always good to chat with you, and thanks so much, Todd. Have a super evening.
Absolutely. You too. Thanks, Sarah.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Well, that was great. I appreciate Sarah Vogt being on the show with us and talking about her experiences and her philosophy, really, which is what I took away. It's always fun to talk to Brandon and Sarah just about what they're doing and their philosophies. They've always got something going on, and it's just fun to hear different people's experiences, different people's thoughts, and fun talking, especially with people that kind of align with where I'm at and how I think as well. So a couple of actionable steps that Sarah took out of or talked about on the show, and I think that's really important, is talking about your goals and making sure you're setting up your goals, not just setting up your goals, but always re-looking at your goals and being willing to change them, not for the sake of just changing a goal, not for the sake of because I failed, but change it because you want to make sure you're aligning your goals with your life. You want to make sure you're aligning your goals with your true happiness. What it is, be intentional about what suits your needs. And then how do you live your best life? And I think that's how Sarah put it. How do you live your best life? And that's what your goal should be hitting on. It shouldn't be hitting on somebody else's life. Shouldn't be hitting on what you thought about 15 years ago. It should be hitting on where you think your best life is right now. And so always adjusting your goals, I think, is really important. And I like how Sarah and Brandon sit down once a year and they really talk about it and they think about what's going to be best for them and their family. And I thought that was just cool. That was great that they do that, and really fun to see that progression too. And they're willing to change. They're willing to sit down and go, look, this is what we thought was going to make us happy, but is that really making us happy? And what is the next progression? Where do we need to be to make us happy, to allow us to raise our kids in a happy family and all that kind of stuff? And so I think that's fantastic thing that they do. And the other thing I think that she talked about was just knowing your business well. And she also mentioned, knowing your business well, and that goes along also with the goals, making sure that's going to meet your goals. But I know Sarah's talked to me before about talking a lot with contractors, and as a woman, it's definitely different than it is with a man talking with contractors, because contractors are mostly men. And a lot of them think that women don't really know what they're doing and are going to basically be kind of pushy around things. And Sarah talks about how, she had to become very knowledgeable. So people took her serious, because if she wasn't knowledgeable, the contractors would really try to push her around. So definitely a hard thing as a woman in an industry mostly dominated by men. So yeah, know your business well. I think that's really important. Anyway, I appreciate Sarah being on the show. I hope you took something great from it, as I did. I am Todd Dexheimer with Pillars of Wealth Creation, and please give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or whatever app you're using. We would love for that to build our network, to build our brand, and share it through social media with whatever you use, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. Share us out, tweet us out, whatever you do. That would be great. That would be appreciated. Again, great show. Appreciate Sarah being on the show, and make every day a Saturday. Want to learn more about real estate investing? Tune in to the best real estate investing advice ever with Joe Fairless. Joe has the longest daily running podcast on iTunes, well over 1,000 episodes. You can listen to me on Joe's podcast, episode 1015, where Joe interviews me and asks me about my best real estate investing advice. Joe has interviewed fantastic guests such as Emmett Smith, Robert Kiyosaki, Barbara Corcoran, all kinds of fantastic guests. Make sure that you go on to Joe's podcast, subscribe, give him a 5-star rating and review. You do not want to miss out on a fantastic podcast, the best real estate investing advice ever with Joe Fairless.